everyone. My name is Nadine Jack, and today I would like to welcome you to our podcast where we'll be discussing men's mental health. In studio, I have with me Miss Brenda Roach. She is a counseling psychologist with a master's degree from the University of the West Indies of Barbados. Welcome, Brenda. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Nadine, for having me.
You're welcome. I just would like you to tell us a little bit about yourself for our listeners and for our viewers. I have your bio right here, but I prefer to hear it directly from you. You know, why you went into this field and why you're passionate about it and what you hope to do with your career.
Why I went into this field, that is a funny story actually.
I'm here for it.
I was actually in banking for 16 years.
Really?
That, yeah, I was in banking for 16 years. Then I was made redundant, and so the decision was whether I would stay at a lower level position or whether I would do something else.
Right.
And so I felt that this was the prime opportunity for me to leave and do something else. Funny enough, when I did my bachelor's degree, I did it with 3 minors. So the minor was in public sector management, psychology, and sociology.
Okay.
I purposely didn't do it in banking and finance. I guess I probably foresaw that I would use it in the future. And so then I was able to segue into going back to school and doing my master's in counseling psychology.
Okay.
And so that's how I got into that. And before that, actually, what piqued my interest was doing a certificate course at Erdeston in basic counseling. So I did that first, and then I said, okay, well, I think I like this. And so then I went in and did my master's.
You felt like it's something you could pursue even further.
Correct.
Question about that. Since you did your bachelor's with the minor in psychology, how was it for you because I think there's an interview process for the master's degree for psychology. How was that, seeing as how the bachelor degree wasn't fully psychology? How was that for you? How did you find the process to be?
It was a bit intimidating. When I had the interview, I was told, well, you know, this is a really, they're very minimal slots for the Masters in Counseling program, especially for Barbadian candidates. So it was a bit deflating and intimidating when I had the interview, seeing as well that I did not do the full bachelor's in psychology.
Right.
So obviously there were courses that I would not have done. Because doing a minor, it limits you to the amount of psychology courses that you can take. And then, of course, I had failed one of them when I was doing my bachelor's. I think it was in research or something like that.
Because statistics?
No, not statistics.
Oh, okay.
I passed that.
Because that's the bane of my existence.
Listen, I've heard a lot about statistics. And I made sure that I actually did lessons for that so that I could make sure that I passed that. Because I've heard that that's something that stops people from graduating.
Yeah.
So that wasn't me. No, it was in research. And so then the person that did the interview, they were saying, well, I'm not sure how you're going to do because, you know, you didn't pass that. But of course, I had to then do a makeup one, a different course to get around that. But I got in, pleasantly surprised when I got in. And I just gave it my all because, of course, I had to prove something to everyone else that I could do this, including myself. So yeah, that's how that process went.
Lovely. And I find that for us, like proving things to yourself sometimes can be a little harder than proving them to other people because you have that voice in your head. And if your self-talk is not positive, that can really determine the outcome of whatever it is you're trying to do. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
Because that was not an easy feat.
Yes, it's true.
That was not an easy feat. So I see that you also have psychological first aid from Johns Hopkins University, and you did that through Coursera.
Yeah.
So just tell us a bit about that.
That course was an interesting course, and it was free. Yeah, you didn't have to pay for that.
Right.
I think it's still being offered now, actually, through Coursera.
Okay.
And what I like about it is that when you think about first aid, we think about, you know, maybe doing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and that kind of thing. When we think about it in terms of psychology, it's pretty similar in the sense that it's making sure that the person is safe first. So, of course, if there's a natural disaster that happens, the first thing you're not going to go and ask somebody is, how do you feel? Right? So it's about making sure that the person has the basic necessities. So you have access to food, you have access to water, you have access to support systems.
Right.
You know, making sure that person is good before you actually begin the counseling process. And that's really what the psychological first aid is really about.
Okay, so that they have their basic needs to survive.
Correct.
And then we deal with the mental.
That's right.
Okay, wonderful.
Because you know nothing isn't going to work if you don't have those basic needs.
Exactly. One of your areas of expertise is grief, trauma, addiction, behavioral issues, anxiety, and self-esteem. So off camera just now we were talking a bit about anxiety, and I just want to get your input into how common do you think it is? Especially now, we have a lot of people have realized that they are having anxiety issues, they're having depression issues, and some of them do not know what to do with those emotions. So what would you recommend for that?
Well, with the anxiety, like you did mention, quite a few people are coming in with anxiety symptoms.
Right.
Depression as well. What I would say is, what I like is that a lot of people are reaching out now.
Okay.
I think the pandemic has really catapulted the mental health world, realm, whatever you want to call it. And so people are finding it a bit more comfortable to reach out to someone for help, reach out for assistance, because they too find that sometimes family members are not the most supportive of people. Sometimes they would say things like, especially to young people, you know, what do you have to worry about?
Yeah, what do you have to be sad about, you know? Yeah.
You don't have a lot of things to be concerned with. You don't pay bills, etc. I provide food, shelter, and all that. But yet still, you know, people are grappling with the things that have been happening. Like you said, the pandemic. And then, of course, the volcanic ash.
Yes.
Everybody's just expecting the apocalypse to come now.
Basically, that's what I felt like at one point. It was like Armageddon is right around the corner.
So, you know. But I think like we were speaking before, we actually started this podcast, the pandemic has really forced people to sit with themselves and their feelings. And it's become very uncomfortable for some people because that's something that people do not normally do. Life is always busy, it's hectic. We distract
ourselves.
You move from one thing to the next. You don't sit and pause and reflect and take time, right? And so that's what I've been working a lot with people with in terms of that. You know, just taking the time to sit with yourself is okay. Don't run from the emotions. Let the emotions come. Emotions are messy. Life is messy, and it's okay. So that's basically
one of the ways to help cope with it. I find too that when it comes to emotions, especially let's touch on race for a bit because we are in the Caribbean, and the majority of our population, I would say, is Black. I don't have the exact figures, but I do know offhand that the majority is Black. And, you know, we would have a history of, you know, servitude, slavery, different things, which some people would argue has an effect on us mentally, right? So my thing is, what would you recommend for especially the Black community for people seeking mental health support? Because a lot of the times we feel as if, we just need to like buck up and be strong. Like we've been through so much, you know, we can handle this too. So at what point does it go from being a strong Black woman or a strong Black man to, okay, I need to go and speak to a professional because something is going on. I can't manage it on my own. How would they go about that? How would you suggest that they go about that?
Again, I think it speaks to having conversations. Like you mentioned, us in the Caribbean, we tend to keep everything quiet. Nobody's supposed to know what's happening. We outside of the home, everything's supposed to be kept underneath the rug. Right? And I think we need to get out of that habit, get out of that culture, and talk about what's happening. So even if it is something as simple maybe as a stomach ache, if you're not feeling well, talk to someone and say, well, hey, I'm not feeling well today. You know? Have those types of conversations. I think that goes a long way in terms of people reaching out and feeling comfortable reaching out to a person who does not perform any other role in their life, right? To strangers practically. It always amazes me. I marvel when I see people come to me for the first time. At first they're a bit hesitant, and some would tell me, especially the men, they would tell me, I'm not talking today when I come in here. And sometimes I tell them, I didn't force you to come to me.
You're here, which means you must think that you need the assistance somehow.
Correct. And then some would say, I'm not going to cry.
And then there's tears.
Right.
And that's okay.
Exactly. Because it's a safe space. This is where you come to talk about things that may be troubling you. With no bias, no judgment. Exactly. It's a judgment-free zone. You can do what you want in this zone. If it is that you just want to sit in silence, then we can do that. But again, people have to become comfortable with that. Being able to sit comfortably in silence with someone else. we always seem to think that when we're having a conversation with someone, it must mean that I have to respond to something that you say. And really truly that's not necessarily what someone needs at that point in time. Sometimes they just need someone just to listen.
True.
You know, be there, be that shoulder that I can cry on or lean on, or
Yes.
you know, just be there and smile with me.
Or just have that release. Just,
Yes.
you know, there's someone there and it's safe and you can just have that release and let all these emotions spill out and then make
Correct.
sense of it gradually as you go through your treatment.
And I find too that a lot of people are talking to each other.
Mhm.
So I get a lot of referrals from some of my clients. My clients
Right.
would refer other people to me
Mhm.
because, again, we're beginning to have that conversation. We're
Right.
beginning to talk with each other about mental health and it being important and it being something that you need to talk about, publicize, so that other people feel comfortable.
Removing the stigma. I
Correct.
want to touch on that. I feel like this is so important just generally because years ago, and not even that long ago,
It's true.
people would be seeing a therapist and it would be very hush hush. And it's like, oh, she going to a therapist? She must be mad. You know, that's like,
something wrong with her.
Something wrong with her. But no, the way how I look at it as a mental health enthusiast and supporter is that when you have a toothache, you go to the dentist. When your body isn't feeling right, you go to your doctor. Why is it when your mental capacities are not operating in the way that you're used to operating them that we're so hesitant to go to the specialist like you who can assist us and give us the tools we need to help ourselves? It's like, I would like it to reach the point where it is normalized like any other service. And I feel like we're kind of on our way there. And I feel like people are a little more open about talking about it. We aren't quite where we want to be yet. But I'm hopeful. I'm always optimistic and I'm hopeful that we get there. So, with that being said, let's branch out a bit into the wider world of mental health. And then we're going to touch specifically on mental health for men and some of the unique roadblocks they may have in attaining mental health support.
Sure.
Okay. So you can begin. You can let me know which areas you would like to address first. And anything that you may be doing specially in mental health.
Okay. I think we can actually segue from what you were just speaking about. So in terms of mental health and removing that stigma and normalizing it.
Right.
So for instance, when you said you spoke about having a therapist and, you know, it being such a shock to some people. Whereas, you know, internationally, like especially in the US, is having a therapist, if you don't have one, then something's wrong with you.
Something wrong with you.
Right, exactly.
That is true. That is true. People have conversations like, oh, my shrink told me the other day that, you know, I need to process this, and it's just normal. It's
or
just
someone
normal.
would say, I live down the road from my therapist.
Yeah.
You know, so I can just walk up there and have my session.
Exactly.
Right. So hopefully we get there where we can normalize it and people see it as something healthy and wholesome. So like you mentioned, if something is wrong with my tooth, I go to the dentist. So I don't even just want it to be because something is wrong. I would like that people can come and have like a checkup once a year or every couple of months, you know, just check in and see, okay, am I still doing okay? Am I, you know?
Not
so
necessarily wait until something is happening.
Exactly.
Right.
So to normalize it in that kind of way. But yeah. We're on the road. We're on the right road because I find, especially with COVID and the volcanic ash, that people are more open and accepting of asking for help when they need it.
Okay. Yeah. That's good. That's good. So asking for help now, we're going to talk about the guys. We're going to talk about men.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one. That is
yes,
a tough one.
men generally, I find when it comes to health matters,
overall,
not just mental health, like health across the board, I find that they need a little bit more encouragement than, you know, their female counterparts.
Yes.
I'm not too sure why that is. Maybe because boys and girls are socialized a little differently growing up, but that too is also changing, which is great. But what do you think are some of the unique obstacles men face when it comes to seeking mental health support?
So, of course, one of the main ones is that they're men. So, of course, growing up, and especially within the Caribbean, boys are supposed to be tough. Boys are not supposed to cry. You know, even if they fall down, it hurts, but they're not really supposed to show that.
Like, what you crying for? You're a little girl, like that type of negative, you know,
narrative that they're fed. And so, of course, that being the way it is, men tend to generally not want to ask for help from anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're not encouraged to.
Right.
They are not really supported if they are.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think that things are changing now.
Okay.
A lot of females are encouraging their male counterparts to get yourself together.
Yeah.
You know,
Seek some help.
before we can get into a relationship, you get yourself together.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that because people generally think you don't need counseling until you're getting married.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you need to be doing it way before then. Way before then, because a relationship has so much nuances, and it's like sometimes people are not introspective enough to know that they have these limiting beliefs or they have these behaviors that they repeat, and they do them in every single relationship. Eventually it doesn't work out. They start a new relationship, and because they're not aware of these things that they're doing, it perpetuates into this other relationship, and it's like you're constantly searching for something, but they're never going to find it because what they're searching for is within themselves. You know? So,
and that's a really good point, actually.
Yeah, it's within themselves.
I find too that because of that, and of course the women would just up and leave. Yeah. So the relationship ends.
Right.
Whereas nowadays I'm seeing that a lot of women are actually voicing their concerns to their partners. And so that's then why men are coming to get some assistance for that. Yeah. Okay. And then when you spoke about emotions, men tend to externalize their emotions a lot more than women. So women internalize their emotions, whereas men externalize. So then men's externalization can look like aggression, you know, anger, that kind of thing, sometimes violence. And so if they have grown up in that kind of environment, they'll think it's normal. Right. Until somebody identifies or shows them that that's not normal behavior.
And there's a different
way to behave. So again, that's another reason why some men will come to counseling as well, because of course it's been identified to them that the way that they have been behaving all of their life is not normal.
Right. It's not okay to process things this way. It might be, they think it's working for them, but in reality it's not. So what are some of the resources available that you're aware of specifically for men and mental health?
The support services in terms of the National Council of Substance Abuse, so NCSA, they provide counseling services. So even though it says substance abuse, I'm not sure if they specifically just target substance abuse, but
or mental health
as well. CASA, Counseling Addiction Support
Alternatives. Right, familiar with that.
Yes. So of course, even though they are addiction support alternatives, they also deal with behavioral issues. They help children, that kind of thing as well. Mental health. The BPW, the Business and Professional Women's Club of Barbados. So even though that says Women's Club of Barbados, they actually have a crisis hotline number. Okay. And I usually direct all my clients to that number as well, because of course my clients can have access to me 24/7. Right. I have a life, right? Right. And so if things happen, because things tend to happen at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, that's when emotions,
they need someone,
they need someone to talk to. And I encourage them to call that hotline number. And from all the reports I've been given, it is very confidential. They get help immediately on the line. There's always someone there that they can talk to. And what happens is if the person on the line once they have that conversation and the person feels as though they need to get further support, there's apparently a psychologist attached to them who will then set up and make arrangements and that kind of thing to have a session.
Okay, that's good.
So there are options out there available. Of course, there's the psychiatric hospital. Nobody still wants to go there
because of the stigma that's attached
to it. Because of the stigma. But of course, you can go to the psychiatric hospital. They can do an assessment there. There's also the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. So, you know, there's a psych ward that is actually at the QEH.
I wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah, there is. And so if somebody has to be admitted, they will prefer that you send them there as opposed to the psychiatric hospital. Because obviously, if you're walking into the hospital, no one knows what you're going in for.
Exactly. Right? But if you're going to the psychiatric, they know what you're there for. Yeah.
So usually I would refer them there at the psych ward of the QEH. And of course, there are psychologists and psychiatrists on board there that would treat and, you know, help patients or help people who need assistance. So there are a number of avenues out there that people can access.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that information. So we're going to talk a bit about tools that, let's say I'm a regular person, I may not be depressed, and we'll touch on depression and what defines depression, because sometimes people get depression and sadness confused when they're two completely different things. So let's say I'm a person who is feeling sad, you know, things aren't going that great. What are one of the tools that I can do? Say maybe I can't afford to see someone and I don't necessarily have a support system, you know, to talk to. What is one of the tools I can use to help myself process these feelings?
Journaling.
Oh,
so
okay.
you
Tell me about that. Yes.
I love journaling.
Okay.
That's one thing. My mother really fostered that when I was younger, growing up. You know, when you think of journaling, you think of a little girl sitting on her bed with a diary.
Yes.
I used to love those lock and key type ones. So of course, but journaling is much more than that. Right? It extends into, and I actually brought my journal.
Oh, show it.
So I actually created a journal. Because I love journaling so much, I created a journal.
Lovely.
This is a 6-month journal.
Okay.
But okay.
Let me see it.
So, yeah, sure. So journaling helps people to get their thoughts and feelings out of their head.
I'm just giving you some promo.
Thank you. And onto paper.
Okay.
Right? Many times, what I find, especially with the clients who I see, they internalize a lot. And so that leads to rumination. So of course, running things over in your mind all the time. And then of course it gets exemplified, it gets magnified. And so things seem way worse than they actually are.
Right.
So journaling can help with that in terms of jotting down thoughts and feelings. No, it does not have to be in any sequential format. It does not have to be full sentences, paragraphs, nothing like that. It can just be short jottings. Okay, I feel frustrated. Why do you feel frustrated? Or it can just be however the thoughts come out of your head. Write them down on paper. When you get that out of your head and you actually look at it on the paper, then you can dissect it and see, is this as bad as I think it is? Maybe in some instances it is. And then you actually need to find out action steps that you can take to get the problem fixed.
Right.
In most instances, it's not as bad as you think it is. And when you look at it on paper, and you can actually see, well, why am I stressing myself about this when it really doesn't look that bad, right? So that's why I find journaling as such a useful tool. I must say, I with my clients, I try to make sure that each one of them journals.
Okay.
So, apprehensive about it when they come to it and they're like, okay, really? And I'm saying, well, okay, if you haven't tried it and everything else you've been trying isn't working, try something
what do you
different.
have to lose, you know? Try it.
What does Einstein say? Trying the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Exactly. So try something different. Maybe the difference will work. And everybody that I've seen so far have enjoyed it, including the men.
Okay.
Men are journaling now a lot more than they used to.
Yeah,
me too. I like it as well. And they're coming to realize that, hey, I can write down my thoughts on paper. I mean, if you think privacy is an issue, then I always say, write it down, rip it up, tear it up, throw it in the garbage, or burn it if you need to. But again, that motion of ripping up, tearing up, and burning is also a form of release as well.
Yes, it can be cathartic.
It is because you get out your thoughts on the paper. So journaling is one such tool that I would suggest. And even if you don't have an actual physical journal or you don't have a notebook, just jot down something on a piece of paper. Laptop.
Yeah, even, whatever device you have.
And they're even apps. So for all of the young people coming up that believe in apps.
Yes, you know, they can just whip out their smartphone. Correct. Put those thoughts down and then come back later to them or review them and see how they're feeling in that moment.
Or even record it and listen to yourself afterwards.
That. I love it. So tell us about this book. I love the color. It's such a yellow, happy color.
Yes, that was the idea. And then of course you can see the keyhole part right there. Obviously that was to depict my the lock and key type of journal.
Got you.
I always buy a lot of journals, and so I thought, well, hey, why don't I create my own? Because I'm always buying. So I created this journal, and the theme behind it is gratitude, happiness, and celebration. Why? Because I find that we don't appreciate a lot of the things that we have right at our fingertips, especially in Barbados. So gratitude is a must.
Definitely. Definitely.
Even the smallest thing, just for waking up in the morning, be grateful for that.
For breath. For that first cup of tea or that first cup of coffee.
I need my first cup of tea in the morning. Celebrate that even. I don't find that we celebrate enough. And so there's even a section in there that deals with celebrating. What do you celebrate today? Exactly. So even if it's that cup of tea or that cup of coffee.
Yeah, and it can be small things like that. It doesn't have to be a monumental feat. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. They think it has to be a promotion. Or an engagement or a wedding.
It doesn't have to be.
It can be those little things, because those little things add up And then for someone going through something, those little things are actually quite big. And I'm going to go back to depression, speaking on that. But first, because some of our viewers are going to be watching and some are going to be listening. So for those listening, the name of the journal is called Gratitude, Happiness, and Celebration Journal. It's a 6-month journal from June to December. Obviously, this is this year, so this will change next year, right? Is it going to be a 6 months?
Yes.
Oh, right, so it'll be a 6-month journal. And it is by Miss Brenda Roach. It's right here in front of me. And I wish you could see it for those who can't. But it's really like, I like the layout of it. It's not a bunch of like jumbled information. And I feel as if I were to go through this, I would be able to like quickly jot down, like, I'm grateful for 3 things. And I could put 3 things down. And then it has things like exercise for the day, and well, I didn't, but I would put that in. Hours of sleep, water intake, like simple things we do in our everyday life. So I think this could be very helpful. Where can people purchase this?
From me directly.
From you directly, okay. And oh yes, and also let us know where people can find you.
Yes.
Right.
No problem.
Okay. So depression. So I want you, for our public, to really break down the difference between everyday sadness and depression. And then depression in itself has different levels. So just give me like a concise, if you can, version or explanation of the difference between being sad and being depressed.
Sure. So sadness happens to all of us, right? I mean, depression can happen to all of us as well. But sadness is something that can happen for not an extended period of time. So for instance, you may be sad about something that may have happened during your day. So your day may not have gone as planned, and you may get sad about that.
Right.
That's okay. Yeah, that will not last for 6 weeks and longer. When it lasts for 6 weeks and longer, that's when you're going into depression.
Right.
Yeah, when you realize that you cannot function, do your daily functions. When you realize that you have low energy for 6 weeks or more. When you realize that you have difficulty staying in contact with friends. So a friend might message you, you see the message, but you're not going to answer it. Someone might call you. You're not busy doing anything, but you're not going to answer.
Right.
When you start to withdraw from those types of activities that you used to love. So you used to love, well, I can't say going out because of course we all used to like that.
So yeah, we can't go anywhere.
But so you used to love maybe going for walks because you can still do that.
Right.
But then you haven't done that anymore because you don't have the energy. When you realize that you are not getting up to have your shower, you're not eating properly, you may be sleeping all day, that's when you know that you're going into depression. And of course, these symptoms last for 6 weeks and longer.
Right.
Yeah. So sadness, okay, it's not every day that you feel like getting up and moving around and doing something. Yeah, you want to lay in bed one day, that's fine. That's not depression. But again, like you did mention, we use those words interchangeably. And so I think that's something that we just do in society, really. But yeah, so once it is that you realize that you cannot function, do your daily functions like you used to, once you realize that, you're beginning to withdraw, you're secluding yourself, you're isolating yourself, that's when you know that you're
especially for that extended period of time as well too. That's pretty integral to that. So tell me something. Let's say that same scenario that's happening with someone. Let's say I had a sister and I realize this is what's happening with her, and I'm concerned, and I say, okay, I think you may be going through something, that I'm here for you. If you want to talk about it, I'm here. But if you think it's something that you need a professional for, how can I help you? So how, as a family member, a concerned family member, a concerned friend, how do you tell someone without offending them that they may need professional help? How do you go about that? Or what would you suggest the best way to go about that?
And just like how you said it just now. So of course, if you have a family member, maybe you're close to that person, maybe you're not. Or maybe it is, well, no, I think you need to be close to them, so at least you can notice the signs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So yeah, just the same way that you did just now. So for instance, you say, well, I noticed that, you may not be doing what you used to do, you're withdrawing, you're not as bubbly and animated as you used to be,
Right.
maybe that's what's happening, what's going on. If you think that you can't handle whatever it is that the family member tells you, then suggest, well, maybe you might want to talk to someone
Right.
that's not me. You know, suggest it like that. Sometimes you might get a little backlash. The person may not appreciate you saying that, especially
Or
as
be
a family.
defensive.
Yeah, be defensive, and that's okay. But I know that when that person decides that they're going to sit down and actually process what you did say, they will realize that there's some truth to it.
Okay.
And then they will have to make that decision as to if they're going to come. Some family members may even try to force them to get help. Yeah. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Okay. Can you force someone though to get help? Like,
force as in you can take them there.
yeah, but you can't make them participate.
No.
Okay.
No, you can't make them participate.
And force in the sense of, let's say somebody's about to hurt themselves, maybe they have an undiagnosed mental illness, they're acting up. Can the family legally take them up and take them to the appropriate person to get help? Is that legal, or like what's the line, the ethical lines there?
Is that legal? I'm not sure if it's legal. I know, like within my profession, I can get somebody admitted or committed to psychiatric hospital or whatever if I think that they're going to be of a danger to themselves. Because of course, when we start the counseling relationship, we speak about confidentiality and the reasons why I would have to break it.
Right.
So there have been occasions where I've had to break it, and I've let my clients know exactly what is happening, because of course I would have said this up front. You signed off on it, saying that you agreed to it. So in our cases, I know ethically that is something that we do to protect the person from themselves, because sometimes that's what they need.
Right.
And so we have them committed to the hospital for however long the hospital deems it necessary.
Okay.
They may not like it, but it's something that is there to help them.
And can they leave if they want to, or they have to go through the course of treatment?
As far as I know, they have to go through the course of treatment. So once I complete the letter, I send the letter with the next of kin and the patient, because I have to inform the next of kin, and then they are assessed at the hospital.
Right.
So once they do their assessments, then they determine how long you will be there for.
Okay.
Right. And then they prescribe the course of treatment that they will need and that kind of thing. And once they have completed that, then they can go.
Then they can leave.
Yeah, because it's not that you can just get up and leave when you feel like.
Yeah, I've always wondered about that when it's a situation where the person hasn't taken themselves, but they obviously need that help. Okay, so let's touch back to the guys for a bit.
Okay.
So I was having a conversation with someone, and they were talking about the things that guys normally speak about in groups. So what I want to know, what would you recommend for men to be accountable to each other and to support each other when it comes to mental health? Like, what are some of the basic things men can do to be there for each other?
I think, especially in groups, I think that men can talk more about the things that are affecting them. So for instance, they may talk a lot about the superficial stuff.
Right.
You know, that
women
do the same thing.
That's good.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
men do the same thing. I'm assuming. I don't know, because we're not men. So
yeah, exactly. Well, we have our little chat groups too.
That's what I'm saying.
But,
so I know we were doing ours, but I mean, I think that men can talk a bit more about things that are affecting them, things that are bothering them, things that they're struggling with. I actually had a client who would have mentioned that they found out about me because of a group discussion that they were having with men, and they were like, so why you didn't tell me about this before? Right? But it's because they're now comfortable talking about things like that. And I think that men need to be a bit more comfortable with talking about feelings. Before, like we did mention, you know, it was how we were socialized. So you're supposed to be tough, you're supposed to show emotion and that kind of thing. But women ain't standing for that no more.
No.
Women want a man who can be empathetic, compassionate, caring, show affection.
Yes.
Genuine affection.
I agree.
Right?
I
And
agree.
so men are realizing that they have to change the way that they operate because it's not working anymore. Females want men who are emotionally intelligent.
Yes. Yes, that is a big point. And I'm
And
glad you brought that up. No.
And in order to be emotionally
Yeah.
intelligent, you have to be in touch with your feelings.
Exactly.
And what's happening with you.
Exactly.
We're not saying that you have to be happy all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to be happy all the time. You don't have to be perfect. But speaking as a woman, because obviously I can't speak for a man, and we will have some guys on here to, you know,
Good.
to defend themselves and give their point of view and their perspectives. But as you and I are both females here, I will say that emotional intelligence is a very big thing. Gone are the days where you would be in a relationship with someone and something is obviously bothering them. You as the woman, you're like, okay, well, babe, you know, what's up? Talk to me, what's happening? And then they don't, you know, they don't want to discuss it. And yes, I get that. There's some women who are very argumentative, and if you say, but it's an argument.
Yeah.
But then there are other women who are very open and understanding, but yes, still you have men who just do not want to open up to that. And I think if we're going to evolve as a society, we need to understand that personal growth is very important. Very important, from romantic relationships to work relationships to every aspect of our lives.
And stop labeling things as being soft.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, it's okay for men to cry. It's okay for men to emote. It is okay for men to feel overwhelmed. Like, we are not going to look at you as less of a man for telling us these things.
Correct.
Actually, it's going to be more admirable because it's going to be like, okay, he trusts me enough to be vulnerable and share this side, you know? So I hope more men understand that and realize the power in that, and that it can actually work in their favor.
Correct.
To do it. Yeah, to do it.
Totally agree.
To do it.
The power in that.
There's power in it.
There is. I know there is a lot of power in that, and I encourage men too to share their stories the same way that we encourage women to share their stories. We encourage men to share theirs as well, because other men can benefit from the story that you're going to tell.
And I find men are usually more open to other men when they're going off of experiences. Just like how you said your the gentleman was referred to you through the guy group that he was in. I find that guys are more open to that information when it comes from their peers.
Yes,
because some things from a woman, it might seem like nagging, or you know, and we don't want to do that. It's not that women want to nag. Well, some women do, but generally, if your lady cares about you and she's talking about something, it's because she's concerned.
Correct.
And she can probably see where it's going, and she's trying to avoid it going down that road because she wants the best for you. So yeah, we got some work to do.
I'm glad that relationships are having those types of conversations too.
Long overdue.
Yes, because normally you would just up and leave, and that's it. That's the end of the relationship. And of course, both are left wondering what happened there. You know. So,
yeah. And it's always best to avoid that. I think obviously you can leave a relationship for any reason. But I think if you're an adult, a mature adult, I think it is best to have a conversation and say, okay, these are the things that you have been doing consistently, which I have brought to your attention, which you refuse to work on. I cannot continue if you don't try, you know? I think instead of just upping and leaving someone, that you do a discredit to yourself and to that relationship and to that person by not letting them know why.
Yes.
You know?
Agreed.
It's easy to ghost people, it's easy to just disappear, but I think as a decent human being, you need to let that person know this was the issue. And then the onus is on them to decide, am I going to work on myself? Am I going to ignore it?
Exactly.
You know, she just telling me foolishness. But you said your piece.
Yes.
So it's now on them to figure out what they're going to do with this information.
So like you said, it's about being a decent human being.
Being a decent human being.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to the men for a bit. And this is on website Psychology Today. I love this website. I look at this in my free time. I'm such a nerd, but I'm into the mental health. So like I would wake up in the morning and have my coffee and just like go on here and just go through some of the columns. So for this, suicide, let's go back to suicide. A lot of people think that when someone is suicidal or having suicidal ideation, suicidal thoughts, that they're sad and depressed and down, and you know, clarify for me the different phases of severe depression when it reaches the point to suicidal ideation. Like, what are some of the signs the average person can look for with their loved ones who they think may be going through it, or who they may not have an idea. Like, what are some of the signs? Because we don't want to wait till after the fact and the person's gone and be like, oh my goodness, you know, they didn't, like, we didn't know, they seemed okay, because a lot of people seem okay, but they're not. So what are some of the signs we can look for?
I mean, before they get to suicide, I think when they're actually there at that stage, they're at peace with themselves, so therefore they're not going to be sad at that point.
Right.
Usually they may have been sad and exhibiting those sad symptoms long before. And again, then I think people tend to leave them to themselves, pretty much. Some people may try to reach out to them.
Right.
But yeah, I think that they are pretty much sad, isolating, withdrawing from, not doing as many things as they used to do before. And that's way before they get to the suicide stage. Right? And then when they get to this stage where they decide, okay, this is what I plan to do, and they become at peace with that, they're no longer sad.
It's like elation almost. It's like relief.
It's like
almost.
relief that I come to this decision. I have clarity.
Right.
At that stage. And so then, of course, they would start doing their goodbyes, really. So of course they're gonna talk, or they may write something.
Yeah.
Or they may say, they may the way they speak, it changes. The tone, the everything.
I've heard like some people give away like prized possessions,
Correct.
things they may have had for a long time. They start to tell people that they care about, you know, I appreciate you and everything you've done.
Yes.
And to the person not aware, they might be thinking, oh, this person is just showing appreciation, but they're saying their goodbyes in advance, and you're not even realizing it. That is something.
The key is to just keep checking in on your friends. Check in on people that you care about.
Especially the strong ones. Because from research, I found that a lot of people who have committed suicide, and you speak to these survivors, the people who they've left behind, and they would always say, oh, they were such a strong person. I could go to them for anything. They could handle anything. But who is supporting that strong person, you know? And I find a lot of the times they fall through the cracks because everybody thinks that's the strong friend, they're okay. But they're not okay. They don't know how to ask for the help because they themselves are so used to being strong.
And then, like you said, a lot of them then tend to think, well, everybody's coming to me, so it means that I can't come to
who am I going to go to? Exactly, because I know they have their problems.
Exactly.
You know?
And I keep telling people, you have friends for a reason. I may be friends with you, which means that you can share with me, but I can also share with you.
Yeah, it's reciprocal. It should be reciprocal.
It should be, exactly.
Yeah, it should be. And I think this brings us to support systems. In an ideal world, you know, everybody would have like supportive parents or supportive siblings, but then you have some people that they don't have anyone. Sometimes that's the way their life is set up. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it isn't intentional. How do you reach someone who is so isolated that that's their norm, like outside of COVID, outside of everything, that's just their introverted way of living? They don't have that support system. They get it, they go to work, and they're okay with it for most part. But then just say they start to go to a depression. Like, how can they get help unless they go looking for it? You know, that's like a touchy thing, because what if they don't know where to look, how to look when they need this help, and they don't have a support system where they can say, oh, you know, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling like I can't deal with this anymore and I just want it to stop. Like, how would they find or create a support system, because they don't even realize that they don't have one?
And that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know that you need the help, if you don't know that you need the supports in your life, because again, you've isolated yourself so much that you don't have them, it's going to be tough for you to reach out to anyone and say that I need this help. That could be because of a breakdown in trust somewhere along in their lives. They end up mistrusting a lot of people. And so what I would suggest is that like we said, be decent human beings. So for instance, if you go anywhere and you can just smile at someone, or if you have time and you can say, how are you doing today? I mean, I do that in the supermarket all the time. I turn around and I'm talking to everybody. My husband laughs at me all the time. But yeah, it's something that I do. And I turn around and I just talk with people. Because there's some people that don't have anyone to talk to. And then sometimes if you just offer that little, 5 minutes of your time.
That makes their day sometimes.
Does.
Yeah.
And it gives them a reason to continue. Right? So be kind to each other. Smile at someone that you don't know. Compliment someone on their dress or their outfit. I loved your outfit from the time I saw it.
Thank you. You said it. And yours as well too. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, simple little things like that go a long way for a lot of people.
It's true.
And I think we have to keep that in mind.
It's true.
And we don't need a whole set of friends.
No,
we don't. I think
quality over quantity.
Exactly.
I always say that.
I wrote that somewhere today.
Yeah,
in a post I was doing.
Quantity.
Yeah, but yeah, quality over quantity. So you don't need a whole set of friends. Yeah, when you were growing up and you were 9 years old or whatever.
Yeah, a whole bunch of people.
Right. But I think that as you mature, you realize you don't need so many people in your life. You just need the quality few that you need. So find those trusted few people that you know that you can depend on. Who will always have your back.
Right.
Who will be there whenever you call. Obviously there are going to be times when they can't just drop everything and come, and then you have to be okay with that, right? But find that trusted few, your tribe, so to speak, as well, that you can depend on. Even if this is something that you're not accustomed to, reach out and find someone. Even if it's it could be your church community, it could be your next door neighbor,
somebody that you feel can be a confidant.
Yes, yes. It could even be a pet.
Hey. Pets make us happy.
They do.
They do.
They do. They love us unconditionally.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They do. I wanna touch on one more thing before it slips my mind. And it had to do with a resource. And I think it was a resource for not suicidal ideation. It was one of the resources. You might have to refresh my memory, but it was something we said earlier. And okay, so this is what we'll do. So until that comes back to me, just go over the resources that you have available right now. You can call the numbers out because again, some people will be listening and some people will be watching. So you just tell them the name of the organization, a little bit about what it does, and how they can be contacted.
Their number is 427-5953. They don't just deal with addiction, but they also deal with children, behavioral issues, self-esteem, that kind of thing. They actually run some programs. I'm not sure if they're still doing that during the COVID period, but you can still reach out to them because they are still seeing people. NCSA, the National Council of Substance Abuse, their number is 535-6272, and you can reach out to them. Again, I'm not too sure if they just focus on substance abuse, but you can always reach out to them because they do have counselors on staff.
Right.
The BPW, the Business and Professional Women's Club of Barbados, and they have a crisis hotline number 435-8222. And of course they can be reached 24/7. So you can call them at any time of the day or night. Someone will be there to answer your call and stay on the phone with you for as long as you need, so that you can get that support.
That's perfect because these depressive things can hit at any time.
1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. So you need that person to talk to. There's a child guidance clinic, and that is actually attached to the psychiatric hospital. 536-3118. I know sometimes it takes a little while for a child to be able to be seen because again, I can't remember the guy's name right now. Can't remember his name, it's not coming to me. But anyhow, there's a child guidance clinic there, so you can always take your children there if you think that they need some support as well. The assessment unit of the psychiatric hospital, so again, their number is 536-3091 if you think that you need to reach out to someone. And then of course the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, 436-6450, and they have a psych ward attached to them as well. So if you need to go in, if you want to go yourself and just report there because something is just not right, or you think that you might want to harm yourself and you don't want to, you go there so that you can at least safeguard yourself.
Okay, lovely. And give us your information so we know where to find you and the book.
Okay, so Brenda Roach, you can find me at my IG handle 5317, so Roach 5317. So you can DM me there. Cell number 2693988. My business is Rebalance Chat. So providing counseling solutions to balance your life.
Right.
So that's on IG as well at Rebalance Chat. Website rebalancechat.com.
Lovely. Is there any other information you want to share with us? Or do you think we have covered most of the topics that are pertinent to
I think we've
mental health
covered
today?
everything. Just reach out if you need to. Find someone that you're comfortable with as well. I always say, even if you do come to me and you realize that we don't click, you know, the energy isn't there, then let's get you to someone who can help you.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
the
another
important
thing too. It's like I call it shopping around.
Correct.
People think that when it comes to finding a therapist, it's one and done. No, you have to find someone that you feel comfortable with, that you're gonna feel okay opening up to.
Correct.
Regardless of who you find, obviously you're ethically bound not to reveal that person's information. So people can put their mind at ease about that.
Correct.
Because while it is a stranger you're having a conversation with, they cannot go and tell your business. Because I do know that that's a concern here, because we're so small.
Yes.
People think, oh, but you know, suppose I tell her or him and then I hear about it. No.
Or suppose I see you on the street.
Maybe with someone, and then someone is like, well, who's that?
How do you know that person?
Right, exactly. And they don't want to go into, you know, that's their
Correct.
therapist. But yes, sometimes you have to shop around, but I always say it's the start. Meet with someone, see how the energy is,
Correct.
see how you feel, and if that person is for you, you stick with them. If not, then you know, you try someone else. But the most important thing is to get out there and get the help.
Yes.
And get the help. So thank you so much.
Thank you
Brenda,
for having me.
Thank you for pursuing this field. We need more people like you. I realize that a lot of people are getting very interested in psychology.
It's true.
So interested. Like our UE is one of the most competitive ones to get into now. Degree courses, but I think it's needed.
It is needed.
It's needed. So thank you for being here on our show.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.